Hello there, today we are going to be talking about this sweet little electric book, also known as the Kindle. We're going to be talking about why I like this, why I prefer to read on it, and maybe if you're on the fence about getting Kindle, this might be the video that tips you over the edge. I'm definitely biased. I really enjoy it. For the longest time, I just read on normal books. My wife had a Kindle, but I never really gave much thought to that. One time she asked if I wanted to just try it out and read on the Kindle. I think we were reading the same book, so I was like, yeah, I'll give it a whirl. And it literally took just 30 minutes for me to realize, I think I want to get one of these at some point. I know that people love reading old-fashioned books, and it's like, that's like the true purest form of reading. But right now, at this phase of life I'm in, I almost feel like I would prefer reading any book on the Kindle. If I could get it on the Kindle, I'd rather have it on the Kindle and read it there. And I know that might rub some people the wrong way, but that's how I feel. And I'm gonna go over 5 reasons on why I like the Kindle so much and why I prefer reading books on the Kindle. Number 1 is that it is very minimal. I love to pack minimally when I travel. I love to just kind of not have clutter everywhere. And just look at this thing. It's so incredibly thin. When I'm traveling, I'm having to try to figure out what to fit in my bag, what I can leave behind, what I can bring. And in the past, I've been reading these thicker novels. Let me grab one. A while back, I was reading this, Bridge of Clay by Marcus Zuzek. Great book, really enjoyed it. But look at it. Look at this thick old book. Definitely not as minimal. This could, in theory, hold this book and like 1,000 other books in here all at once. If I had this guy and like 1 more or even 2 more, if I'm bringing 3 books and they're all this size, that is a lot of, I'm gonna need a separate little bag just for these books. So I like the minimal aspect of this Kindle. Number 2 is screen consistency. If I'm using the Kindle, I can have a consistent reading experience all the way through whatever I'm reading. I can set the font to whatever size I want. I can set that screen brightness, if you have the backlight version, to whatever I want. Basically set it to the way that I like it, and then more often than not, that's always gonna feel the same no matter what book I'm reading, which I just like that I can kind of set the tone of how it feels. It's kind of like when you can control the movie watching experience at your house compared to like going somewhere and seeing it. If you're at your house, you can like literally make it exactly how you want it. You can set the volume, you can make the lighting in the room exactly how you want it. You just are designing your own experience through that. And in the same way, you can design your own reading experience through the Kindle. Number 3 is reading at night. If I was reading this other book and I was trying to lay in bed, I can maybe do it with one hand, but I have to kind of use 2, and it's just difficult to lay back and have this overhead. It's just not very convenient to do that. Whereas this thing, especially if you have the little cover on it, I can kind of use the one finger holds technique right there. And this is super easy to hold. The second portion of the reading at night thing is, I've mentioned it before, the backlight. Having a small backlight, I try not to use it a ton, especially if it's right before bed. But there's times that I can read further into the night. I just put this on like very low, like on 4 or 5 or 6 or something, just enough that I can read it. It extends my reading time into the evening in ways that I just couldn't with a normal book. Number 4 is progress bar. I am a huge fan that the Kindle will give you your progress in the bottom corner. The whole book is a little iffy sometimes because I'm currently reading a book and it's like 4 books in one. So it's thinking that the end of the 4th book is the very last page, when that's not true, so that doesn't always work. The thing I like more is the chapter progress bar. It'll give you an average of how quickly you can get through this chapter based on your previous reading. I might start a new chapter and it's gonna say there's 12 minutes left in this chapter, there's 25 minutes in this chapter, there's 35 minutes left in this chapter. And just before I even dive into a chapter, knowing how much it is can kind of set, like, am I ready to dive into this? If it says 5-minute chapter, I'm like, oh, you know what? I can get one more chapter in. If it says 35-minute, it's like, okay, well, I've got some other stuff to do. Maybe I'll come back to that a little bit later. And number 5 is highlights, notes, and bookmarks. Bookmarks, let's just get that out of the way. I know a normal book has bookmarks as well. I'm just happy that they put in an electronic version. You can add a little bookmark to any page and hop between them really easily. I'm just glad that they took that little feature of just real life bookmarks and put it into the Kindle. I've never been a huge fan of writing in a book. I just never really brought myself to do it. I don't like kind of adding a ton of stuff to there unless I was just studying a textbook or something like that. But with the Kindle, it's really no big deal. I can press and hold and it can highlight something. And if I wanted to go into that highlight and add a note on why I highlighted it or why it's interesting to me, then I can do that as well. When I finish a book, I can export the entire list of highlights and notes as a PDF. I'm way more likely to dive into that because I can, one, search for text and find the exact thing. It's like, oh yeah, there was this funny quote about coffee that this one character in this book made. I can like thumb through the book and try to find it, or I can just type in coffee into that PDF of notes and it's like, oh yeah, that's the one. I wanted to use that, or I wanted to talk about that. So that's it. That's the 5 reasons why I love reading on a Kindle and that I prefer it over normal books, at least right now. That could change. Maybe I go back to normal books at some point, but that's how I feel right now. But what about you? Are you a book purist? Do you love the feel of pages in between your fingers? Do you use a different type of e-reader? Use the comments below, let me know. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you're thinking about getting one of these, hopefully this kind of gives you some of the perks of getting one. Again, very biased. I really like it. And until the next video, see ya.